Great. Welcome to the Clothier Roundtable. Today I'm Sarah and we've got Danielle Heiser and Carrie Buffalo, both design managers with Clothier Design Source. And we are here to talk about the Clothier 4-step process, what it is, and how you do it. So first, I'd love for you to explain what is the Clothier 4-step process. What are the 4 steps?
So I'll start. The 4 steps are design, prototype, tech design, and manufacture.
That sounds pretty easy. Could you tell us a little bit more about each step, starting with the design process, step 1, design. What is that?
Sure. So design really starts with just kind of gathering in your thoughts and inspiration on the product. So you come to us with an idea for a product, and now we have to figure out how we're going to create this product. So usually that entails someone giving us maybe a rough sketch, maybe not even a sketch, maybe something they've seen in the market similar, maybe some photographs, maybe a combination of different things, and just walking through both their ideas in their head and then these other kind of inspiration things and figuring out how to create that into a garment. And we usually do that through design boards, which are a drawing, a flat tech drawing that explains the options and the ideas we have to create your garment with using different design ideas, different ways to construct it, different seam types, what kind of fabrics are going to be used. All these things kind of come together in this blueprint document.
Yep, and then also part of the design phase is sourcing. So that's raw material sourcing, and that's like, so the design boards define how many fabrics your garment has and maybe kind of the rough idea of the type, but then the sourcing team actually reaches out to our vendors and brings back to you the swatches of fabrics that are available. So that's fabrics and trims, and there's different levels of complexity that can go within sourcing. So that's kind of the biggest variable, I think, in terms of timeline and your design. But those 2 things about the sketch, the design board, and the fabric sourcing are what define step 1.
Right.
Okay, so we have design boards and sourcing for step 1, design. Then how about the prototype step? What does that entail?
So prototyping is when we actually start to cut and sew your garment and create a physical prototype sample. So we're looking at the design board, we're creating a pattern, we're cutting the fabric pieces out of that pattern, and then we're sewing together a garment. And this will happen in a couple of rounds of prototyping during that phase so that you have the chance to make changes, give us fit comments, work on sizing. All those kind of things are happening in the prototype stage.
Okay, what if somebody already has a pattern and brings it to us at Clothier Design Source? What do we do with their pattern? Why would we potentially make a new one? Or do we just use the pattern existing?
So it depends. We evaluate the pattern when it comes in. I don't think I've ever seen a pattern from a client that was ready to manufacture. They always need to be, maybe like, again, back to if they're made a pattern and they're happy with the sample, the pattern may be not ready for manufacturing. Maybe not have the correct seam allowances, or the way that something was constructed. In the end, the way we would do it would look the same, but the order of operations is different. So it really is a huge benefit to have us, prepare that pattern for production, and that could mean a variety of things. Sometimes this happens a lot in samples that we see is a pattern will be one thing, and then the sample maker or the seamstress that you had make it will kind of fudge some things when they're sewing it, and so the pattern doesn't actually reflect the final sample that you like. And the only way to know that is for us to really evaluate it, but that's really common.
That's very common, and in a way that can happen in our process too, where we're creating a pattern for first proto, and when the sewers get to sew it, they realize something that needs to change or be fixed. And so we are able to work through that right at that point, where if you came to us with a sample and a pattern that didn't match, your sample maker may have figured that out but then never went back to update the pattern, where that's not how we're doing it. We're updating it, make sure it fits together all at once as we're sewing it. We're kind of back and forth with the pattern as well.
So I think it's great to acknowledge that there's a difference between a pattern that is ready to make a prototype with and a pattern that is ready for manufacturing? There could
Absolutely.
potentially be a difference.
Yeah, there
Okay.
always is, yeah.
Good. That's-
Yeah, there always is, because I mean, a lot of it comes down to machinery. So the machinery that we use in the manufacturing process is different than the sample maker would use. They don't have all of the automated machinery, and they're set up differently to do one-offs versus us, who were set up to manufacture at a mass scale, and that's the biggest benefit to having us revise the pattern.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit more about the third step, tech design?
Sure. So tech design happens after we've gone through all of the prototyping and we've actually created your pattern in all of the sizes that you plan to manufacture. So that's kind of where the tech designer picks up on the step, is that she's now going to, or he is going to document everything we've done to create your garment so that it's ready for manufacturing, so that we have a really good detailed blueprint of everything that went into making your garment. It includes the pattern pieces, the tech drawings, all of the colorways, fabric and trim information. It will include the points of measure of your garment, so that it's a really good way that you can communicate with your manufacturer how they are to manufacture the garment and follow the steps that we've set up to manufacture.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say somebody thinks they're ready to manufacture. They've got this idea and they want to start manufacturing. What do they do, or how do they know if they're ready? What do you need in order to get started with manufacturing?
Yeah, so we do hear from a lot of people who think they're ready to go into manufacturing just right away with the sample they have, and I don't think that's ever been truly the case. There's always some development that needs to be done. So at the bare minimum, whatever factory you're working with, including CDS, we need to make a prototype, or what's also called a counter sample. So we need to use your pattern, your fabrics, your materials. You don't have your sample here, and ideally you have a tech pack you can give us as well. And using all those tools, we'll make a counter sample. Send it to you for approval. If you approve it, great. We can think about manufacturing. If you have revisions, we have to. Good thing we made a counter sample, so you didn't end up with 1,000 of the same units that now you can't use.
Yep.
So then we go back and revise it. So that's the bare minimum of what you need to go into manufacturing. But I've seen much beyond that. Is we see a lot of patterns and prototypes that come in here that really should be revised before going into manufacturing, and it mostly comes from just quality. Making sure that they're the highest possible quality and production friendliness. So, if you had a sample sewer make a garment, great, they're good at that, but they're not experts at manufacturing. And so we would, likely make recommendations for that. So, if you have a pattern, great, we'll make revisions to it. Sometimes people think they're ready to manufacture and they don't even have a pattern. Well, we know that we need that to do it, so we can start making a pattern. Or there's some people who even have a garment they want to manufacture, but it's still a rough prototype. We might recommend design boards for them to give them the options so they could see, what their options are for manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I've seen every different level, and at the base level, you need at least that counter sample. But in order to get that, you need a lot of things. You need to bring us a tech pack, a counter sample, your or a sewn sample, your pattern, and your materials.
Okay. So the fourth step is manufacture, and we haven't really gotten in deep about that, but what is that step at Clothier Design Source?
So for manufacturing with us, it is the point where we take your garment now and we can make it in multiples and in various colors. So for example, if you were to make a t-shirt, and you wanted to make that t-shirt in small, medium, and large, and red, white, and blue, that's what manufacturing is. It's now making 100 red smalls, 50 blue mediums, 200 white larges, whatever the breakdown is for you, that's what the manufacturing process is. So one great thing about working with our manufacturing, if you're doing steps 1, 2, and 3 with us, when you're ready to go to step 4, we're kind of guiding you along the way. So we're helping you get enough fabric here and get enough labels here and make sure that our production team is prepared to sew for you, that they understand the steps we took in development to create your garment, and now they've had this chance to now learn the steps and learn about the quality control and all the things. So that's great. But some people don't manufacture with us, and Danielle touched on that a little bit with the tech pack is, that could be a step that is taken somewhere else. But when you do it with us, I find it just is a really smooth transition because it is all done in our building. And like I said, we work as a team. So if you've worked with us through development, our development team is now going to hand you over to our manufacturing team and explain what needs to be done with your garment.
What types of things do you manufacture? Do we manufacture here at Clothier Design Source?
Many, many different types of things.
Yeah. Well, that brings up, so we do many different types of things, but it does bring up a good point about some pitfalls I've seen, with other clients is you want to make sure that your manufacturer is set up to manufacture whatever type of good you have.
Yeah.
Not every manufacturer can cut and sew any different type of good. Just think about the differences in machinery that might be required from bridal to denim. Totally different, right? So not every factory is going to be able to do that.
So when a client thinks that they've completed steps 1, 2, and 3 and are ready to manufacture, how can they be certain? How do they know for sure if they're ready to move on, or if somebody is coming from another company to manufacture at Clothier? How do they know if they're ready?
Yeah, well, good thing we developed we have a checklist. So because there's a lot of things that you need to be ready for it, and we have what we call a manufacturing checklist, and you can download it on our website under the resources tab. And it lists out everything you need from what we call assets. So then the asset is all of the materials, fabrics and trims, as well as the pattern, final prototype. And then, we have a couple other things where, we require a down payment to start manufacturing. And we also have an agreement, a manufacturing agreement that we ask people to sign. But the full list is on that checklist on our website.
Great. I was also curious about what steps or what part of the process takes the longest, which is the most time consuming for clients?
I think it could be twofold answer. The first part of design can take a long time, and I think that's important because that's where you want to spend a lot of time really investing in the understanding of what your garment is, how it's going to be created, and that we fully understand each other in terms of what you're looking to get out of the garment and how it's going to be constructed, and also sourcing. I think sourcing is a big place to spend a lot of time because you want to really think about the fabrics and the trims that are going to make the most sense and work with your garment.
What does sourcing mean? What is that? I talked about it as part of step 1, but
Sure.
What does sourcing include?
So sourcing is the materials. So it's the actual going out and looking for and giving you options of what kinds of fabrics and trims are going to be in your garment or could be used in your garment. So that's that could be a time where you want to spend more time both in design and sourcing. I think that's probably maybe the biggest place to spend your time.
So and I can talk a little bit more about sourcing too, but we have another Clothier roundtable that's specifically about sourcing, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but you could check that out. So yes, definitely the design phase. We want to really hash out, and define what we can in that beginning part in order to save time later. But then so sourcing isn't just a matter of going to the store and buying fabric. That's not how it works. You want to be able. We were operating at a wholesale level, so we need to be able to get work, and we work with hundreds or if not thousands of different fabric and trim vendors, and so. We want to, we reach out to those vendors and then, acquire the samples. And then we have to send the samples to you, and then you evaluate them and choose them, and we'll help you do that. And then once you choose them, then we have to order them. And then, different stock levels can change, and, fabrics can become available at one time and then not available later, or you have to switch or a certain color is available and you have to kind of switch it around. That happens a lot in sourcing, so it's important to take time in sourcing, but it's also important to be flexible. If timeline is your number one goal. and then we have to, they have to ship it. So it's different than, design, we do it all here. We have our design team here. They sit at their desk and design the garment for the design boards. But sourcing, it involves just a lot of other people and other companies outside of Clothier, because we have an awesome sourcing team that has access to tons and tons of different materials. We don't stock them here just because we use so many different ones. And that's why it takes so much time, is working with different vendors, reaching out to them, getting the items shipped here. But it is time well spent, because it does pay off, accessing like really cool fabrics that maybe another manufacturer who doesn't allow sourcing, who maybe only uses their stock fabrics, well, we can get other extra stuff.
Yeah. What do you think clients find most surprising about the 4-step process?
Sourcing.
Yeah, I think maybe sourcing. Yeah, I would say probably, because of kind of what you mentioned, it's not just going to the fabric store and picking something out. There's a lot of other levels to it, in terms of finding what's available, and maybe something that's not quite available but could be available. So we're really digging deep and kind of investigating what can be used in your garment and why. And there's a lot of back and forth with the vendor and with our team, and then again with the client. Yeah. So there's kind of this like full circle that has to happen, and I think people don't realize that fabrics really make a difference in the quality and the function of your garment. And so that's a big thing that I think maybe people downplay or underestimate the importance of what the materials are used in your garment, or why they're so important, and how they can change and improve your garment.
Yeah, and something here's the thing with sourcing. So if you're using an inspiration garment, let's say you have an inspiration garment from the store, well, every big brand, like Nike, Adidas, like even smaller than that, they have their fabric specifically made for them. So it's not, Nike didn't just go to a wholesale vendor and say, oh, I want that one. They have them develop. They worked with a mill, a mill that actually makes the yarn, and then knits or weaves the fabric, and they have the fabric made for them with the specific content that they want, and the specific knit and the functions and the treatments. And so because a lot of the brands we're working with aren't operating at like the level of Nike, they are not ready to have a custom developed fabric. And so we have to source fabrics that are wholesale, that are available. And so if you have an inspiration garment, great, we'll start there, but the likelihood of finding that exact fabric is pretty low, because that fabric was likely made specifically for that production run. And so that can be surprising for people, is they'll say, hey, I want a fabric that's this exact Nike shirt, and we're like, great, we can do that if you are willing to develop your own fabric, and it could be anywhere from $50,000 and up. So we're trying to avoid that and start on a smaller scale, just to even test your idea. So we start with sourcing fabrics that are available, that are stocked. And I think some people find it surprising that not every fabric is available to buy.
Yeah. What are some common mistakes to avoid throughout the process?
Don't skip steps. It's true. It's true. Like, we develop them for a reason, and people always are like, oh, I'm not, and we understand, you're maybe, if sometimes you're on a budget, or you don't, you're not ready to commit to the whole process. And we do get that, but what I've found is you just end up paying later. If you try to skip a step, if you try to skip design boards, you're just going to end up doing 2 more prototypes down the line, 2 more iterations, because you didn't start there. If you didn't source a good fabric in the beginning, if you just used fabric that you bought at the store, you're going to pay that later when you're ready for manufacturing. Yeah. Guess what? We have to prototype again because your fabric isn't available.
Yeah, I think one other mistake is, or I don't know if it's a mistake, but I think people don't always think about it, is just taking time to really test out your garment. So that means getting it on the people who are going to be the end user, getting their feedback, maybe using a multiple of people, trying it on various segments of the market to see that feedback and really analyze it before you go on to make changes. And then, of course, just testing also includes like washing it and all those, fitting it, all these things, just really spending time with it and not trying to rush, just actually testing it out.
Why I think people don't do that is because they make another mistake, which is they don't give themselves enough time to properly develop.
For sure. Big
So,
mistake.
you need to give yourself a long enough time to develop the garment properly, to test it, and to accommodate for potential changes that we have to make later. And every garment is different, the timeline that it needs, but if you have a really firm end date of when you need to release a garment, you're really, the general rule is about 12 months.
Yeah.
And that's from the time that you have the first idea that you bring to us to the time that you have actual sewn garments, manufactured, finished quantity in hand. Sometimes it's shorter, yes, sometimes. But sometimes the way that we shorten it up is you kind of skimp on some of the testing and but to be like the industry standard for any company is really working 1 year out.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So one of the things that in terms of timeline that I find is most of the people that come to us are inventing or creating something that doesn't exist, that has not been made before. So to speed that up is just so difficult because we're actually trying to figure something out and put elements of things together that have never been done before.
Exactly.
So you really have to test them and you really have to spend time figuring that there's going to be tweaks and there's going to be changes because this is, for the most part, something very innovative and brand new.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like you are spending more time on the development end so that you're not having to repeat things or go back or have poor sales later because you didn't take enough time. Is that
absolutely
sound about right?
Yeah.
Or we've seen clients who that have come to us that they had a production run elsewhere and they now need it fixed. And so, we've been able to help them out and fix different things about it. But wow, like talk about, you tried to save time and now you have a poor quality product and it needs to get fixed and you got that time right back at the end.
Yeah. Always the skipping of anything comes back to bite you in the end.
Yes.
Even if it seems little, even if it seems like you don't need that one little tweak, you're gonna need to see it. You're gonna need to test it.
I think that concludes our session for today for the Clothier Roundtable. Thanks for watching.
Say that one more time.
That concludes today's session of the Clothier Roundtable. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.